Welcome back, guys. I'm your trainer, Tommy Rivs. We are here in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, one of the islands within the Canary Island chain. This is our culture walk of the Las Palmas historic area. So guys, where we are right now is actually known as Barrio San Juan. So this is the neighborhood of San Juan, a neighborhood which was built up on the mountains above what's known as Las Palmas in the 1960s. So we're gonna explore this neighborhood and then work our way down into the historic district of Las Palmas. Guys, right now, what I want you to do is just take in the sights of this neighborhood. If you look around, you'll see the bright colors of these square houses. These houses have been built essentially one on top of another since the 1960s. This is a neighborhood that was built essentially without an urban plan. Because of that, what we'll find as we go in and explore this area is this incredible labyrinth system of these tiny, narrow little streets and sidewalks that make up the different routes that work through this neighborhood. So people come from all over the world to take in the views of this neighborhood specifically because of the bright colors. As we get down here, guys, I want to turn around and just take in a view of this city right up here. Look it, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So all of these different colored houses, each house a different color. It works all the way up to a lookout over Las Palmas. We're going to continue working downhill until we find our way into the historic district. So the Casa de Colón, which is the house that Christopher Columbus stayed in when he was here in 1492. Right over here, guys. You'd miss it if you blinked. We're gonna take a sharp left down this tiny little corridor. This is exactly what I'm talking about, guys. Look at how close the houses are built next to each other. All right, so during these culture walks, guys, we're just cruising around. We're just gonna look at stuff. We're probably gonna get lost a little bit. That's part of the fun. We're just going to explore this area and see what we can find. So just gentle. We're just taking our time out on an exploratory mission. Whew, so much to see here, guys. So just to give you a little bit of context, Las Palmas is a town or a city on an island known as Gran Canaria. Gran Canaria is one of the Canary Islands. So these are part of an island group which is known collectively as Macaronesia. So we have the Canary Islands, we have the Azores, we have Madeira Island, we have the Savage Islands, and then further to the south we have what's known as Cabo Verde or Cape Verde. So these are a group of islands that are found off of the west coast of the continent of Africa in the Atlantic Ocean. Within the Canary Islands, there are multiple different islands, 7 major islands, and then a series of smaller islets is what they're known as off of these islands. So within this island group is the tallest mountain within all of Spain, as well as the tallest mountain within the islands of the Atlantic. So this group, Macaronesia, sometimes it's confused with Micronesia. People think that they're comparing and contrasting Micronesia, which is found down in Polynesia, with Macaronesia. This actually isn't the case. So Macaronesia is spelled M-A-C-A-R-O-N-E-S-I-A. Guys, check this out real quick before we continue on. Look right here. I love this view. You've got one street coming down. We've got this house built literally in a triangle, and then this other street that comes down here to the left. So Macaronesia, M-A-C-A-R-O-N-E-S-I-A. Nesia means nation. Macaronesia, as I was saying, is not in contrast to Micronesia. It doesn't mean many islands or big islands. It actually, Macaronesia is based on the Greek word which means the fortunate islands. So that's where this island chain gets its name. So as I said, it's composed of multiple Atlantic islands. Guys, check this out really quick before we go on. This is one of my favorite things in this entire neighborhood. We got right here, this beautiful sun, and then this right here, it says correr. Correr in Spanish actually means to run. So that's a perfect depiction of how I feel about running and walking most of the time. Okay, so we're gonna continue to work down through this area and then work down towards what's known as the historic district of Las Palmas. Man, I seriously love these streets, how narrow these are. Imagine before there were actually roads here. Roads weren't part of the urban planning, they were added later. But before that, all the transportation that took place was on foot. Let's go this way, guys. Hola. Okay, we're gonna take another sharp left, but check this out, guys. Calle Real de San Juan. Look how cool this is. These colors, I love the shutters. All of these different colors in this design. This is typical colonial architecture, guys. Colonial architecture simply means areas or colonies, areas that were colonized by an empire. So the empire that we're talking about most of the time here is the Spanish Empire. So this is an area that was colonized in the 1400s. So the people that lived within the Canary Islands, the indigenous people, some of these people were known as the Guanches, the indigenous people here, which are ethnically the same as the Berbers, or the people that lived in North Africa. They call themselves the Amazagen or the Amaji people. These were the people that we saw in Morocco, that ethnic group. Remember, guys, when we were in Morocco, we were talking about the Arab Spring that took place in 2011. The main reason that that took place is because the countries that had colonized North Africa, they had failed to recognize the Berber people as a distinct ethnic group. They painted them with this broad stroke. Essentially, as they pushed the European colonizers out, the French and the Spanish, they started to peel back layers. They only peeled layers far enough back to when this same group of people was previously colonized by the Arabs, the people that came from the Arabian Peninsula, brought with them the new religion that today is known as Islam. They only peeled back that far. So this was something that was really offensive to the Berber people. They said, we are our own distinct people. We have our own languages. We have our own belief system. We've been here for thousands of years. This same group of people, this same ethnic group, they're the ones that made up the original inhabitants of these islands off of that western coast of Africa. So the Guanches, the people here that inhabited the Canary Islands, were that group of people. The Guanches eventually, they were conquered for the most part. There's still Guanches that live here, but for the most part, the political system changed, the religion changed. With the Spaniards, what happened was a transition in the political system. So Spain became in charge of this area essentially. With that change also came Roman Catholicism. So remember, guys, when we were in the Balkans, we talked about the transition that took place between Diocletian. He was that emperor. We discovered Diocletian's palace there in Croatia. He was the emperor that led the great persecution of the Christians. The very next emperor was Constantine. When Constantine became the emperor, the religion of that Roman Empire transitioned. It transitioned from the beliefs in the pagan ancient Roman gods to Roman Catholicism. So Spain was part of the groups of people that were influenced by that change. And so as Spain later, if we fast forward 1400 years to what's known as the Age of Discovery, Spain, Portugal, those two crowns, they began to send people out throughout the entire world, colonizing these different areas. This was one of those areas that was colonized in the 1400s. Everything that we see here, guys, all of this construction, these houses were built during that time. These were houses of the noble people. Guys, let's just check this out right here. That white building with the wooden banisters there, this is a typical Canarian home. So that wood came from pines that were found in the forest here 400 or 500 years ago. These forests were for the most part completely clear cut. So the ancient species of old growth pine that was used to create these banisters here in these Canarian homes for the most part has been destroyed. So you can understand just a little bit as to why this area is valued historically. The resources that were used to create these structures are no longer found on the island. So in the 1400s and the 1500s, this area was an incredibly powerful area. People from all over Europe, when they would work their way across the Atlantic to the New World, as they called it, this is where they would stop to reload those ships. Christopher Columbus was one of those sailors commissioned by Isabella to go across and essentially discover the Americas, as they called it. Obviously, there were already people that lived there, but basically history is written by those who have that political power. And, well, you guys know my views on that. We've discovered lots of different areas. This right here, guys, this is known as the Hermitage del Espíritu Santo. So the Hermitage is an area essentially where hermits would come, they would study, they stayed there. Off to the right, guys, check out this building. So many of these artistic and design patterns are so familiar, guys. It doesn't matter where we are in the world, if they were touched by that Roman Empire, the design is so much the same that we see throughout this entire area. Right up here, guys, to the right, check that out. That Gothic arch, and then as we come around here to the side, we see these Roman arches. We talk so much about that. It's incredible to just see how powerful that influence is, independent of where we are throughout the world. So we're gonna cruise down this road, guys, and then we're just gonna crisscross back and forth, and eventually we're gonna make it to what's known as the Plaza de Santana. So right now, what's taking place, guys, is the celebration of Corpus Christi. The celebration of Corpus Christi is a Catholic holiday. This area in Spain is still very much Catholic, so it's a national holiday that's celebrated. Let's keep going, guys. Right over here, off to the right. All of these buildings, guys, built in the 1400s, used throughout the 1500s, and then remodeled, most of them, in the 1700s and the 1900s. It wasn't until the 1900s that these areas were fully appreciated as the historical buildings that they are. Guys, check this out. Let's come over here and look up close. Check out these pillars. All of this, guys, has been carved out of basalt stone. This is known as the Iglesia de San Francisco. If we look up here, guys, look at the detail in these squares. All of this put together. You would think that this is just molded out of concrete, but if you get up close, you actually see that these are single pillars that have been carved out of basalt. That's absolutely stunning, guys. That Baroque architecture, that same Baroque architecture that we see all over this part of the world, that elaborate, gaudy, exaggerated detail that we find on those pillars. Here we are. Let's cross over real quick. Okay, let's keep moving. And then, guys, here again, this is another depiction. These wooden banisters coming out here onto these balconies. These are known as Canarian balconies. This wood combination with the white stucco walls. This is really similar, guys, to what we see in Morocco. Remember, they didn't use so much wood. It was these bright colors, that contrast between the bright colors and the wood. And then if we look up, guys, we see some of the same geometry, these round shapes, as well as the triangles, as well as the squares, the circles within the squares within the squares. All of that, guys, remember, there was this push back and forth between Spain and Portugal and then North Africa, these two different belief systems. You had Roman Catholicism and then you had Islam. Within Roman Catholicism, eventually you had these really elaborate pictures. You had, check this out, right over here to the right. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So these elaborate murals that depicted historical figures, that depicted religious figures. But then you had, remember, within Islam, the belief that you weren't able to create these depictions of anything that had a soul. So because of that, you had geometry, you had color, all of the religious symbolism found within the geometry and the color, that contrasted with these elaborate murals, these elaborate paintings from Christianity. So you had this push back and forth between the two. This area in the Canary Islands, which is essentially Spain, but in terms of geography, it is much more Africa, the African continent. So we see a combination of those two things here. Check this out, guys. This is known as the Palacio de Justicia. This is an area which was an important military fortress right next to a church. This is basically an example we can see of the combination of church and politics, religion, and essentially the military that would come in. That was basically at the heart of colonialism, guys. We had this military conquest that would come in, that would dominate the area, and then right behind we had the religious figures that would come in and convert whoever it was that lived in that area to this new belief system. That's something that you see over and over and over throughout the colonial world. All right, we're going to continue forward. We're going to take a left, work our way up this street, continue towards the Plaza de Santana and the Cathedral of Santana. Check this out, guys. Look at how cool this is. This view, these streets actually don't allow cars in this area. That's part of this historical district of Las Palmas. So this allows us on a day like today to explore this and have it all to ourselves. Whew. Wow. Stunning stuff, guys. So a town like this grid system, this is something that we find all over any of these colonial areas. So if we went to Puerto Rico, if we went to Cuba, if we went to Lima, if we went to different cities within Venezuela, we would find very similar grid systems that were designed after these original cities. This city, as well as another city known as La Laguna on the island of Tenerife, these were some of the original cities established, and then they served as models, architectural, urban planning models of all of these other cities, which were then established within what is known as the New World, so the Western Hemisphere, the Americas. So this is very different than Barrio de San Juan, where we descended from, where it was a labyrinth system. These cities were planned out meticulously. Guys, we're gonna turn right here. What you see right here is the backside of what's known as the Cathedral of Santana. This is a cathedral that was constructed over 400 years. Guys, come forward here. Let's climb up and check out some of the designs on this building. So what I love about this specific cathedral is that it is formed entirely out of basalt. Basalt is a volcanic stone. It's just a simple gray to slate to black stone. This island is made up of that stone, and then this black stone has been used to create this cathedral. Look up there, guys. Look at that Roman arch, and then right up above we have the square and the circle within that square. Remember, guys, we've seen that symbol so many times when we were in Portugal, when we were in Morocco. That square, the right angles of that square, and then the circle in that square. Remember, guys, within Islam, and as well as many other religious traditions, that circle represents eternity. That square represents laws, represents obedience, represents exactness. It's incredible to see the combination of these different belief systems. Obviously, this is a Roman Catholic cathedral. There's so many different styles on all the different sides of this cathedral. Think about 400 years of construction. And then guys, just like we find outside or inside many different cathedrals in this part of the world, we have predictably a fountain. This fountain has 8 sides on it. Remember guys, we talked about that number so many times when we were in Portugal, when we discovered all those ancient cities. So many times we saw those 8-sided stars, and then inside these 8-sided stars, this is essentially the shape that would be made up. Remember guys, within Christian theology, the number 8 has powerful significance, not only because of that star shape that we see, but remember the number 7. The number 7 means beginning and the end. The earth was created, and then the day of rest within those 7 days. On the 8th day was not a beginning, but a new beginning. So a lot of times you'll see these fountains, these baptismal fonts, these are typically 8-sided. The reason they're 8-sided is because it's not the beginning, it's the new beginning. It's that rebirth. So predictably, you will always find those 8-sided fountains. Right up here, guys, this is known as the Casa de Colón. Casa de Colón, this is literally where Christopher Columbus in 1492 stayed on his way over to the Americas, commissioned by Queen Isabella. Guys, if we look at this, up to the right and the left, we have these 2 dogs. These dogs are important for the Canary Islands, specifically because that's where they get their names. So Canarios, that literally is based on the word canine. It was the word that was given to the islands from King Julbo II. Remember that Berber king? We've heard a lot about him when we were in Morocco, specifically in Essaouira or Mogador. Julbo II was the king that created that trade network of Tyrian dye, that purple dye, that dye that was used, created by the predatory shellfish being crushed, the ink that came out of that hypobrachial gland. Remember guys, in cephalopods, things like octopus, things like squids, they have what's known as a hypobrachial gland where they spit that ink out as a way to protect themselves. So that dye was collected from these shellfish on the Papua Islands outside of Morocco and then used in that trade network to dye the togas of the emperors in that Roman Empire. So these same figures coming back over and over and over. So King Julbo II, he named these islands the Canary Islands in reference to the dogs that were found on these islands. So these huge hounds, as well as these mastiffs, will come around to the front of the cathedral and we'll actually be able to see depictions of those. Right up here, guys, this is another representation, another facade. Guys, remember when we were in Portugal and we saw doorways that looked exactly like this? We called that artistic style Manuelino. Manuelino in reference to King Manuel, who was the king during that age of discovery. What we see on these facades specifically are depictions of things that were found in the colonial world. So things that aren't found in Spain, things that aren't even found in Europe, but things that are found in the colonial world. These were brought back and then they were depicted on these facades. If we look up here close, guys, we see images of animals that were found in that colonial world. We see images that are the exact same as the types of images found in Mexico and Latin America, the statues of the people there. And then guys, if we continue further over here, we drop down. Check these out, guys. This is a depiction of a pineapple. This is something that was not found in Europe. That was only found in those colonial areas. All right, guys, so we're gonna flip around and continue back towards the cathedral. And then we're actually going to go around into the front of the cathedral. We're going to see the Plaza de Santana, and then we're going to see the dogs that I specifically was talking about, the dogs that give this entire area its name as Gran Canaria. Gran Canaria literally means the island of the great dogs. So this is an area that the Guanche people, they use these dogs. It was a belief that they actually worshipped these dogs. So in ancient Egypt, there is a deity which is a dog-headed figure Some historians, archaeologists, Egyptologists believe that there was a connection between the ancient Egyptians and specifically the indigenous people that lived here in the Canary Islands. So the dogs were revered, the dogs were actually mummified. The same mummification techniques that took place in Egypt took place here as well. Okay guys, so off to the left you can see what looks like the remnants of a building. This is actually, at one point, it was a school. It eventually became a hospital. And then as the cathedral was being built over 400 years, this building was actually disassembled. The pieces were taken and used as building material in the construction of the actual cathedral. So that cathedral took 400 years to build. You can see there were many different architectural styles used during that 400-year period. Let's come around here to the front. We can take in the views of this mammoth cathedral, all of this built out of basalt. Check out these giant Roman arches, guys. These huge pillars, that Baroque style at the tops of those pillars. This is a combination of Gothic art, Renaissance art, as well as Baroque art. Let's come up close and actually see the detail on this building. Absolutely stunning, guys. 400 years. It's kind of hard to not just stand and gawk at something this incredible. Very cool. Okay guys, so the timing is absolutely incredible. So this week, what's taking place in this area, if we look up, it looks like construction is taking place, but what it actually is this giant artistic depiction in celebration of the holiday Corpus Christi. So we'll go check that out, but before we get there, guys, what I want to show you is this. These are depictions of the different hounds and the different mastiffs that were found here in the Canary Islands. So this is specifically how the Canary Islands got their name. Gran Canaria, literally meaning the great dogs. That name given by King Julbo II, that king, the Berber king that set up that trade network of the dye throughout the entire Roman Empire. Guys, come over here. Let's continue to check this out. So as I mentioned, the holiday Corpus Christi, that's taking place right now. So this entire plaza, this entire area right here, there is this giant piece of art that's being created. So this white border right here, this is actually salt. And then within this entire area will be filled with petals of flowers. So Corpus Christi is a holiday that typically takes place 60 days after Easter. Corpus Christi is Latin. It literally means the body of Jesus. So it is in celebration of what's known as transubstantiation. Transubstantiation is a belief within Roman Catholicism that the Eucharist, during communion, when they take the bread and the wine, or those small little wafers and wine, that what's literally taking place is transubstantiation. This is becoming converted into the body and blood of Jesus. Hola. ¿Yo puedo preguntarle lo que están haciendo?
Pues estamos desflorillando. Desflorillando para la alfombra.
Sí, pero ¿qué es eso? Nosotros acabamos de llegar.
Christi.
Okay.
Todos los años se celebra Corpus Christi.
Okay.
¿No?
¿Y ustedes hacen?
Es una procesión religiosa.
Okay. Wow. ¿Y van a llenarlo completamente con las flores? Es increíble.
Y hay muchas calles que también se llenan. Calles
¿Con las flores?
Alfombras,
Wow.
alfombras de flores.
Okay. ¿Y cuántos días eso va a quedar?
Césped.
¿Eso se quedará por cuántos días?
Hasta mañana. Por la tarde.
Hasta
Esto
mañana.
solo se puede pisar
Okay.
mañana.
Wow. Wow. Increíble. Bueno, gracias. All right. So they're explaining to me exactly what's taking place. So they're taking the tops of the flowers off. They're going to create a carpet of flowers, this entire area, guys. Tomorrow, they'll work on this all day through the night, and then tomorrow you can actually walk on this carpet of flowers. So they're gonna have this entire area closed off, but tomorrow people will be able to come and actually make a procession through the streets and end up here in front of that Cathedral of Santana here in the Plaza de Santana. Check this out, guys. All of these flowers. And then certain streets, they mentioned as well, they're gonna have what's known as an alfombra. Alfombra literally means a carpet of flowers leading to this area. Guys, come up here even higher. What we have is another depiction. All of this is salt. So we have artists coming in, creating this once a year in honor of that holiday of Corpus Christi. Look at this, guys. This is the seal of the island here. You have the dogs down there at the bottom. You have the palm, and then you have the depictions of specifically that seal of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria here. Incredible stuff. All of that is different colored salt that's been dyed and then used specifically for this art. That's incredible, guys. Can you imagine making a piece of art like that? And then right here in front of us, we have all of the different significant political buildings around this church here, the Cathedral de Santana. Guys, absolutely stunning stuff. Thank you so much for exploring this with me. So much cool stuff. Remember, guys, we started up in that barrio de San Juan, that barrio, that neighborhood that was built in the 1960s. You can see the contrast between that labyrinth of streets as we worked our way down and then finding this grid system of this original colonial town here in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria. Guys, I'm your trainer, Tommy Rivs. This has been an absolute joy showing you guys this, adventuring through this old historic town and seeing all of this stuff. Make sure you come back. We're going to continue to explore so much more. Rest up, and I'll see you guys soon.
Voy.